Good day everyone, I am Paz Desaline from Abels 2. So this is my simple presentation that compares and contrasts two different theories of the second language acquisition. The two theories that I chose to compare and contrast was the processability theory and the input, interaction, and output in second language acquisition. So let's start. I have here an overview of each of the theory. First is the input, interaction, and output in second language acquisition. Input refers to a language that a learner is exposed to in a communicative context, while interaction refers to a conversation that learners participate in. Lastly is output. So the function of output is to promote automaticity, which refers to the routinization of a language use. The second theory that I chose was the processability theory. So this is the theory of second language development, which is the logic underlying PT or processability theory is the following. Like at the any stage of development, the learner can produce and comprehend only those second language linguistic forms which the current state of the language processor can handle. The first slide that I presented was just an overview of the two theories. So the next slide was the detailed description of the two theories that I chosen. So the first theory is the input, interaction, and output in second language acquisition. Like what I said earlier, input refers to the language that learners are exposed to, whether it is written or spoken. It also serves as a primary source of linguistic data from which learners extract patterns, vocabulary, and grammatical structures. Second is interaction. Interaction involves the meaningful exchange of language between learners and the speakers of the target language. So it provides opportunities for learners to practice their language skills in real-life situations. Like for example, in public places when they need to use the second language. And output that refers to the production of language by learners themselves. So it involves using the target language to express ideas, thoughts, and opinions. The model suggests that learners need comprehensively input to acquire language, which is enhanced through meaningful interaction. As learners engage in interactive language use, they develop their ability to produce output effectively. So, how interaction brings about learning? Through interaction, a learner's attentional resources are directed to problematic aspect of knowledge or production. So here are the two types of feedback. The first one is explicit, while the second one is the implicit. Explicit includes corrections and metalinguistic explanations, while the implicit includes negotiation strategies such as confirmation, clarification, comprehension, and recast. The language-related episode. So this is briefly defined as LRES, referred to instances where learners continuously reflect on their own language use. Next is attention. While inputs such as that provided in recast may be regarded as catalyst for learning, and LRES as evidence that learning processes are being engaged. So what counts as evidence? As Mackey and Gass point out, the goal of much interaction-based research involves manipulating the kinds of interaction that learners are involved in, the kind of feedback they receive during interaction, and the kind of output they produce to determine the relationship between the various components of interaction and second language learning. And the task. In a one-way task, the information flows from one person to the another or to other, as when a learner describes a picture to her partner. In other words, the information that is being conveyed is held by one person. And that's all the description or definition of this theory. Next is the processability theory. At any stage of development, the learner can produce and comprehend only those second language linguistic forms which is current state of the language processor can handle, like what I said in the first slide. So, second, it is therefore crucial to understand the architecture of the language processor, the way in which it handles the second language. Third one is this enables one to predict the course of development of second language linguistic forms in the language production and comprehension across languages. The third one is the incorporation of the language processor. The study of second language acquisition therefore brings to bear a set of human psychological constraints that are crucial for the processing of a languages. In this paradigm, each stages represent a set of grammatical rules that share certain processing routines. In each interlanguage variety represent a specific variant of the grammatical rules. So here's the example. In stage 1, the SBO question. He live here. Stage 2, the WH plus SBO. Example is where he is. And the stage 3 is copula inversion. The example is where is he. So the extended version of processability theory adds to this the claim that the initial form of grammar in second language acquisition is determined by the default relationship between argument structure, example, who does what to whom, and the way they express by the grammatical forms of the target language. Presented here are the similarities and differences of the processability theory and the IIO in SLA or second language acquisition. Let's have first the differences of the two. In processability theory, it emphasizes the role of language processing and the order of developmental stages in SLA. Second, PT proposes that there is a predictable and universal sequence of stages that learners go through when acquiring grammatical structure. And lastly, acknowledges individual variation in the rate and order of acquisition. While in the input, interaction, and output, it emphasizes the importance of meaningful input, social interaction, and output production in second language acquisition. Learners also need to exposure to meaningful and authentic language use to acquire linguistic structure. Learners engage in conversations, negotiations, and collaboration tasks that provide opportunities to communications and language development. Lastly, language production or output plays crucial role in second language acquisition. Then let's proceed to the similarities of two theoretical frameworks that explain different aspects of second language acquisition. And while both theories focus on the role of input and interaction in second language acquisition, they differ in terms of their emphasis and the specific processes they emphasize. Let's move on the strengths and weaknesses of those two. The weaknesses of IIO, second language acquisition, is difficulties in determining learning. It is often difficult to determine if learning has actually taken place. One difficulty common in any approach to SLA is in operationalization of learning. Second, common misunderstanding. The first misunderstanding concerns the scope of the interaction approach. Lastly, inadequate of a low-quality input may hinder language acquisition as learners requires accurate and meaningful input to develop their linguistic skills. While the strengths is exposing learners to comprehensible input helps them to acquire new vocabulary, grammar, structures, and pronunciation. Second, authentic input such as a native speaker's conversations, movies, and books provides exposure to real-life language use and cultural aspects. The third one is input can be tailored to individual learners. And lastly, interactive activities such as conversation, discussion, and group work that provides opportunities for learners to practice and develop their speaking and listening skills. Next is the strength and weaknesses of the PT or processability theory. The strength is it provides a comprehensive framework for understanding how learners progress to different developmental stages as they acquire a second language. Second, developmental stages proposes a series of developmental stages that learners pass through as they require grammatical structures and more. While the weaknesses is simplistic view of language. Critics argue that PT offers a simplified view of language by confusing primarily on the acquisition of grammatical structures. Second is overemphasis on structural complexity. The third one is lack of empirical evidence and limited application to non-European languages. So let's proceed to the implication for language teaching. Processability theory shows us that there are clear language processing stages that remove constraints for the next level of language acquisition, and also that there is a lot of variability among learners. Input and output are essential because the input is a prerequisite for output and output is a necessary result of input. Intake is needed in the process of transforming input into output, in which interaction is an effective approach to receiving input and making output. So in these two theories, the perspective offered by the input and interaction has been presented. The central tenet and the approach is that interaction facilitates the process of acquiring a second language as it provides learners with opportunities to receive modified input, to receive feedback both explicitly and implicitly, which is in turn may draw learners' attention to problematic aspects of the interlanguage and push them to the produce modified output. In conclusion, in the two theories, let's summarize the main points of each. So, in summary, what the study of language or second language learners' perception about feedback in conversational interaction showed was that learners were most accurate in their perceptions about lexical and phonological feedback and were generally inaccurate in their perceptions about morphosyntactic feedback. Processability theory focuses on the developmental stages of grammatical acquisition and the role of language processing, while input interaction and output theory emphasizes the importance of meaningful input, social interaction, and output production. Both theories contribute to our understanding of second language acquisition by shedding light on different aspects of the learning process. Overall, processability theory offers valuable insight in second language acquisition by focusing on the cognitive processes and developmental stages involved in language acquisition. While it has its strengths in terms of cognitive processing focus, developmental stages, and predictive power, there are also weaknesses related to its simplistic view of language. Overemphasis on structural complexity, lack of empirical evidence, and limited application to non-European languages. Future research should address this limitation to further refine and validate that theory. And that's all of my simple presentation about comparing and contrasting the two theories. Thank you for listening.